The sound of construction machinery isn't something you expect to hear echoing across your own land when you're supposed to be the only one living there. But there it was, rumbling through the phone line as my neighbor tried to explain what was happening back home. "You need to see this," he said, his voice tight with disbelief. "Karen's building houses. Lots of them. On your property. I was 7,000 miles away, stationed overseas, serving my country. And back home, the HOA president had decided my 50 acres of pristine Texas hill country was hers for the taking. What Karen didn't know was that while she was busy playing real estate mogul with my land, I was documenting every single move she made. And when I finally came home, I didn't just take her to court. I took everything she had. Before we dive in, drop a comment below with where you're watching from and what country you're in. Let's see how far this story reaches. When I bought those 50 acres outside of Austin, it was supposed to be my retirement dream. After 20 years in the Army, I'd saved every penny I could. I wanted space, peace, and a place where I could finally breathe without someone barking orders at me. The land was perfect. Rolling hills covered in native grass, ancient oak trees, and a creek that ran crystal clear through the southern boundary. I spent my last stateside months before deployment clearing a spot for the house I'd build when I got back. I had the land surveyed, marked, and fenced. Every corner had a steel post with my name on it, and every boundary line was documented with the county. I even installed game cameras to watch the wildlife while I was gone. My property sat adjacent to Pine Valley Estates, one of those sprawling HOA communities where every mailbox looks identical and you need permission to plant a rose bush. My land wasn't part of their HOA, thank God. I'd made sure of that. The property deed was clean, outside their jurisdiction, and I'd specifically chosen it because I wanted nothing to do with homeowner association politics. I'd seen enough bureaucracy in the military to last me a lifetime. That's where I met her. Karen Westbrook, HOA president, real estate agent, and, according to her business card, community development specialist. She showed up about a week before my deployment, driving a white Mercedes SUV with vanity plates that read, "Sold It." She was maybe 50, with that aggressively maintained blonde hair that doesn't move in the wind, designer sunglasses that cost more than my truck payment, and a smile that never reached her eyes. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she'd said, though I wasn't technically in her neighborhood. "I'm Karen, president of Pine Valley HOA. Just wanted to introduce myself." "Appreciate it," I replied, shaking her hand. "But I'm not part of the HOA. My land's separate." Her smile tightened, just a fraction. "Oh, I know, but we're all neighbors here. Community spirit and all that." She looked around at my cleared land, the surveyor stakes, and the building materials I'd started stockpiling. "Planning to build?" "Eventually, after I get back from deployment." "Deployment?" Her eyes lit up with what I thought was genuine interest. "Military?" "Army. Heading overseas in a few days." "Well, thank you for your service," she said, but something in her tone felt rehearsed, automatic. "How long will you be gone?" 12 months, give or take." She nodded slowly, and I swear I saw something calculating flash across her face, but I dismissed it. I had a million things to worry about before shipping out, and reading into a neighbor's expression wasn't high on the list. I left in early September. My buddy Marcus, who lived about 10 miles down the road, agreed to keep an eye on the property. Check the fences, make sure nobody was dumping trash, that sort of thing. He was a retired Air Force, solid as they come. "Don't worry about a thing," Marcus had said, slapping my shoulder as I loaded my gear. "I'll watch your land like it's my own." For the first month, everything was fine. Marcus sent me photos every week. The grass growing tall, deer at the creek, nothing unusual. Then in October, the messages started changing. "Hey man, saw some surveyor flags on your property. Orange ones, in the north section. You hire somebody?" I hadn't. I told Marcus to check it out. His next message came with photos that made my blood pressure spike. Survey stakes, dozens of them, creating a grid pattern across my northern 20 acres. And they weren't my stakes. These were marked with PVE Development LLC. Marcus, what the hell is PVE Development? I messaged back. Pine Valley Estates, he replied. Karen's company. Brother, I think you need to make some phone calls. I did. I called the county planning office first. According to their records, a development permit had been filed for my property. My property. Under PVE Development LLC. The application claimed the land had been purchased from me in August, right before my deployment. That's impossible, I told the clerk. I never sold anything. I still own it. Sir, I'm showing a deed transfer dated August 28th, notarized and recorded. My deployment date was September 3rd. Someone had forged my signature. I contacted a lawyer immediately. Sarah Chen, a sharp property attorney whom Marcus recommended. I explained everything from a coffee shop in Germany with Wi-Fi so bad I wanted to throw my laptop through a wall. This is fraud, Sarah said, her face pixelated on the video call. Clear cut, but we need to move fast. If they start building before we can stop them, they wouldn't, I said. Not that fast. I was wrong. By November, Marcus sent me photos that made me physically sick. Concrete foundations, dozens of them. Trucks rolling across my land, carving roads through the native grass I'd spent months clearing carefully to preserve. Heavy equipment is tearing up the ground. And signs. Big professional signs. Pine Valley Estates Phase 2, 52 luxury home sites, starting at $400K. She's building on my land, I messaged Sarah, hands shaking. How is this legal? It's not, Sarah replied. But stopping it from overseas is complicated. She's betting you can't fight from over there. Karen was smart. Evil smart. She'd timed this perfectly. File the fake deed while I'm about to deploy, start construction while I'm overseas and can't physically be there to stop it, and hope by the time I get back, the houses are sold and occupied, making it a legal nightmare to unravel. But Karen made one critical mistake. She underestimated how much I cared about that land, and she underestimated what an angry soldier with internet access can do. I started documenting everything. Every photo Marcus sent, I saved. Every county record I downloaded. Every email from Karen's company I archived. I filed a fraud report with the county in Germany. I had Sarah file an emergency injunction to stop construction. And I did something Karen never saw coming. I contacted every single person who'd put a deposit down on those houses. See, PVE Development was advertising the homes online. Beautiful renderings, virtual tours, the whole package. And people were buying 52 lots. And according to the sales records Sarah pulled, 43 already had buyers under contract. I created an anonymous email account and sent every single buyer the same message. The land these homes are being built on was stolen. The actual owner never sold this property. Legal action is pending. You may want to verify ownership before closing. Within 48 hours, Karen's office was flooded with panicked buyers demanding proof of ownership, and she couldn't provide it because the deed was forged. The county finally took notice. An inspector went out to the site and immediately red-tagged the entire development. All construction stopped, but the damage was done. Foundations poured, roads cut, trees cleared. My land looked like a war zone. I'm coming home, I told my commanding officer. I need emergency leave. He looked at the documentation I'd compiled, the photos, the fraud report. Go, he said. 30 days. Handle this. I landed in Austin in mid-December, drove straight to my property, and stood at the fence line staring at what Karen had done. 52 concrete slabs where native prairie used to be. Roads cut through the landscape like scars. Survey flags everywhere, none of them mine. A sales office, a model home under construction, and a massive sign that made my jaw clench. Karen Westbrook, broker making your dream home reality. Marcus pulled up behind me. Brother, I'm sorry. I tried to stop them, but... Not your fault, I said. This is on her. What are you going to do? I smiled, but there was no humor in it. I'm going to bury her. The first thing I did was go to the county courthouse with every document I had. Original deed, survey records, closing paperwork from when I bought the land, my deployment orders proving I was overseas when the fake deed was filed, and a notarized statement that I had never sold, transferred, or authorized development on my property. The county clerk's face went pale as she reviewed everything. "This is fraud," she whispered. "Serious fraud." "I know. What are you going to do about it?" Within a week, the county district attorney opened a criminal investigation. The fake deed? The notary stamp was stolen. The signature? Not even close to mine. The whole thing was sloppy, rushed, and arrogant. Karen had been so confident I couldn't fight from overseas that she hadn't even bothered to forge it well. But the civil case was where I planned to destroy her. Sarah filed a lawsuit that made the local papers. Soldier returns from deployment to find 52 homes illegally built on his property. The story went viral. Local news picked it up first, then state news, then national. A soldier serving overseas while an HOA president stole his land and built houses on it? The optics were devastating for Karen. Her real estate license was suspended pending investigation. Her HOA board demanded her resignation. And every single buyer in Pine Valley Estates Phase 2 sued her company for fraud. But Karen? Karen doubled down. She held a press conference outside her real estate office, standing in front of a banner that read, "Community First Development." "This is a misunderstanding," she said, smile plastered on like armor. "We purchased that land in good faith. If there's been an error in the paperwork, we'll certainly work to resolve it. But calling it theft? That's defamatory." A reporter called out, "The property owner says he never sold the land and has proof he was deployed overseas. How do you explain that?" Karen's smile cracked. "No comment on pending litigation." "Did you forge his deed?" another reporter shouted. She walked away without answering. That night, Marcus and I sat on my truck tailgate at the property line, drinking beer and staring at the construction devastation. "She really thinks she's going to win this," Marcus said. "How?" "Because she's never lost before," I replied. "She's been running that HOA like a dictatorship for 10 years. Nobody's ever successfully stood up to her. She thinks she's untouchable." "So what's the plan?" I grinned. "Discovery. We're going to pull every document, every email, every text message from her and her company, and we're going to find out how deep this goes." And that's exactly what we did. Sarah subpoenaed everything. Karen's business records, her company emails, text messages, phone logs, bank statements, the works. What we found was even worse than I imagined. This wasn't Karen's first rodeo. Over the past 8 years, she'd done this twice before. Different properties, different owners, same playbook. Find land adjacent to her HOA. Wait for the owner to be unavailable, sick, elderly, or deployed. File fake paperwork. Start building. And by the time anyone noticed, the development is too far along to stop cleanly. The previous victims had settled, taken payouts to avoid lengthy legal battles. Karen had counted on me doing the same. But I wasn't some elderly landowner who couldn't afford a legal fight. I was a soldier who'd spent 20 years dealing with bureaucracy, regulations, and the chain of command. I understood the documentation, and I was furious. The discovery process took 3 months. By March, we had everything. Emails where Karen discussed acquiring my land before I even deployed. Text messages with her construction manager. Start pouring foundations before he can stop us. Bank records showed she'd already sold 43 lots for nearly $18 million in contracts. But the smoking gun was an email to her lawyer dated September 15th, just 2 weeks after I deployed. Target land owner deployed overseas for 12 months. Minimal risk of interference during the construction phase. Recommend an aggressive timeline. If completed before return, possession may influence the court favorably. She'd planned this. Premeditated. She knew I was deploying, she knew I'd be gone, and she'd deliberately targeted my land because of it. When Sarah showed me that email, something in me went cold and hard. "We're not settling," I told her. "I want a jury trial. I want this to be public, and I want everything she has." Sarah smiled. It was the smile of a lawyer who'd just been permitted to go nuclear. "Let's destroy her." The trial was set for late May, and in the weeks leading up to it, Karen's world began to collapse. The criminal investigation resulted in charges: 3 counts of forgery, 2 counts of fraud, and 1 count of theft over $100,000. The state bar suspended her real estate license permanently pending the criminal case. The HOA board officially expelled her, and residents of Pine Valley Estates started their own lawsuit against her for mismanagement and misuse of HOA funds. Turned out she'd been using HOA money to fund her development company. But Karen still had money, good lawyers, and that unshakable arrogance that comes from a decade of bullying people into submission. She showed up to court every day in expensive suits, perfect hair, flanked by attorneys who cost more per hour than I made in a week. The trial lasted 8 days. Sarah was brilliant. She walked the jury through every document, every email, every piece of evidence that proved Karen had deliberately targeted my property and committed fraud. We showed them the forged deed with my signature that didn't match my actual signature on the original purchase documents. We showed them Karen's emails discussing the timeline and her bet that I couldn't fight from overseas. We showed them the $18 million in contracts she'd signed, selling homes on land she didn't own. We showed them photos of my property before I deployed, peaceful and untouched, and after, scarred with construction. And then I testified. I sat in that witness box in my dress uniform and told the jury everything: how I'd saved for 20 years to buy that land, how I'd carefully planned my retirement dream, how I'd deployed to serve my country, and how I'd gotten that call from Marcus telling me someone was building houses on my property. "When you saw the construction, how did you feel?" Sarah asked me. I looked directly at Karen. Violated, betrayed. Like I'd been stabbed in the back while I was overseas protecting the freedoms that let people like her steal from people like me. Karen's lawyers tried to paint it as a paperwork mistake, an administrative error, a misunderstanding about property boundaries. But they couldn't explain the emails. They couldn't explain why Karen had rushed construction. They couldn't explain the forged signature. And they definitely couldn't explain why Karen had targeted my property specifically after learning I was deploying. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the forewoman read the verdict, and I watched Karen's face go through every stage of grief in 10 seconds. Fraud, guilty. Unjust enrichment, guilty. Punitive damages, awarded. The jury ordered Karen to pay me $2.3 million in damages, but Sarah wasn't done. "Your Honor, we're also seeking equitable relief. The defendant has built 52 foundations on my client's property without permission. We request the court order their removal at the defendant's expense and the restoration of the property to its original condition." Karen's lawyer shot up. "Your Honor, that's unreasonable. The cost of removal and restoration would be over $4 million. It would bankrupt my client." The judge looked at Karen for a long moment. "Your client committed deliberate fraud against a deployed service member. She targeted his property specifically because she believed he couldn't defend it from overseas. She has shown no remorse. The court orders the removal of all structures and restoration of the property within 90 days, at the defendant's expense. If she cannot afford it, she may sell assets to cover the costs." Karen's face went white. "Your Honor, We're adjourned." The gavel came down like a guillotine. In the hallway afterwards, Karen tried to approach me. Her lawyers pulled her back, but she shook them off. "You've destroyed my life," she hissed. "Over a piece of land. Was it worth it?" I looked at her, this woman who'd stolen from me while I served overseas, who'd gambled that I was too far away to fight back, who'd built an empire on my land and sold it to innocent people for millions. "You destroyed your own life," I said. "I just held you accountable." She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away. I never saw her again. The aftermath was better than I could have imagined. Karen couldn't afford the $4 million restoration cost on top of the $2.3 million judgment. She declared bankruptcy. Her development company dissolved. Her personal home was seized and sold to pay the judgments. The HOA fined her $175,000 for violations during her tenure, and when she couldn't pay, they placed a lien on every asset she had left. But here's the beautiful part. Remember those 43 buyers who'd contracted to buy homes in Phase 2? They all got their deposits back from the court-ordered settlement fund. Every single one. And several of them approached me afterwards. "If you ever do sell lots," one told me, "I'd buy from you. You're the kind of person we want in this community." The criminal case took another 6 months, but the verdict was inevitable. Karen pleaded guilty to avoid trial. 3 years in prison, 5 years probation, and permanent prohibition from real estate activities. The restoration took 4 months. I hired a conservation company that specialized in land recovery. They removed every foundation, every road, every structure. They regraded the land, replanted native grasses, and even relocated some of the trees that had been pushed aside but not killed. When they finished, you could barely tell anything had been built there. I stood on my land on an October morning, 1 year after Karen started building, and watched the sunrise paint the hills gold. The grass was growing back. The creek still ran clear. Deer grazed near the tree line. It looked like peace. It felt like justice. Marcus drove up with coffee and breakfast tacos. "How's it feel?" he asked. "Like home," I said, finally. "You going to build that house now?" "Eventually, but I'm in no rush. I've got time." We sat on the tailgate eating breakfast and watching the land wake up. My phone buzzed, an email from Sarah. "Thought you'd want to know. Karen's appeals were denied. The judgment is final. Congratulations. You won." I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired, but also satisfied. Karen had gambled that I was too far away, too powerless, too overwhelmed to fight back. She'd assumed that a deployed soldier couldn't defend his property from overseas. She'd built her entire scheme on the assumption that I'd give up or settle, but she forgot something important. Soldiers don't give up. We adapt, we plan, we execute, and we complete the mission. My mission was justice, and I'd completed it. The legal fees cost me $180,000. The restoration cost me emotional energy I'll never get back. The stress took months off my life, but I got my land back. I got justice, and I sent a message to every bully, every Karen, every person who thinks they can steal from someone just because that person isn't around to defend themselves. You can't. Not always. Not forever. And sometimes the person you steal from will come home and they will end you. 3 months later, I started building my house. Not 52 houses. One house, my house, right in the center of those 50 acres, overlooking the creek where I'd always planned to build. I used some of the settlement money. The rest I donated to a legal fund that helps military members fight property fraud while deployed. If Karen's fraud taught me anything, it's that I wasn't the first target, and I wouldn't be the last. But I could help the next guy fight back. The house took 8 months to complete. Nothing fancy, just a solid 3-bedroom ranch with a wraparound porch and big windows overlooking the hills. I moved in on a Saturday in June. Marcus helped me unload the truck. "Never thought you'd actually get here," he said, setting down a box of books. "Neither did I for a while. Karen tried to steal your dream, but you got it anyway." I looked around at the wide plank floors, the stone fireplace, and the view of untouched land rolling to the horizon. "Yeah," I said. "I did." That night, I sat on the porch with a beer and watched the stars come out. The same stars I'd looked at from Germany, from courthouses, from sleepless nights, wondering if I'd ever get justice. And I thought about Karen. Not with anger anymore, almost with pity. She'd had everything: a successful business, respect in the community, wealth, and status. and she'd thrown it all away because she couldn't resist stealing from someone she thought was powerless to stop her. Pride comes before a fall. And Karen fell hard. The lesson here isn't complicated. Respect boundaries, respect property, respect people, especially those who serve. And if you're thinking about stealing from someone just because they're not around to defend themselves, remember this story. Remember that distance doesn't mean powerless. Deployment doesn't mean defenseless. And underestimating a soldier is the last mistake you'll ever make. I finished my beer, locked the doors, and went to bed in my own house on my own land that I'd defended from 7,000 miles away and won back in court. Some battles are fought with weapons, some are fought with lawyers, but they've all won the same way with courage, documentation, and the refusal to back down. Karen learned that the hard way. And every time I sit on my porch watching the sunrise over those hills, I smile knowing that justice wasn't just served. It was restored. So I'll ask you this. What's the boundary in your life that you need to defend? What's the fight you've been avoiding because it seems too hard, too expensive, too far away? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Because there are more stories of justice coming, more battles won by people who refuse to give up, and you're going to want to hear every single one.